I'm Libby Dangoor and I'm the Chief of Staff at Multiverse. What does Multiverse do? Well, we are on a mission to build a diverse set of future leaders by building an outstanding alternative to university and corporate training. So what we do is we're offering apprenticeships to young adults and those looking to upskill, and we help those businesses embrace digital transformation and build a truly diverse talent pipeline. I was actually racking my brains on this one. I've got a couple. So when I went to university, I actually wanted to be a biochemist as my starting career aspirations. But once I was there and studying it, I realised I wasn't actually very good at it. But secondly, I also managed to sequence myself, my own DNA in my third year project, which probably suggested it wasn't the course of action for me. And then another secret, I guess, is early on in my career, I actually worked as a graduate at BP, and I spent 12 months living in Baku in Azerbaijan, which was just so much fun as an expat. And so that's another little secret not many people know. So originally when I joined Multiverse, I was a people director before becoming the chief of staff. So in that role, I was able to build a lot of good relationships across the business, get under the hood of culture and the values, and most importantly, I built a really strong relationship with Euan, our CEO. And then following our Series B raise, which we announced earlier on in this year, and the rapid growth we were going on, it was becoming more and more apparent that Euan really needed this role, the chief of staff role, to provide him with the leverage, with more leverage, I should say, internally and externally. And so when I was pulling together the job description for him, I was like, this is a cool role, because it pulled together a lot of my skill set more closely. So I started my career at BP, but then I switched quite quickly into management consulting at Bain, where I spent 5 years. And I learned obviously the generalist consulting skill set, and that's really aligned to the chief of staff role. And so when I was going through the job description, it was pulling together lots of strategy, business planning, helping him be a thought partner in lots of different strategy areas, but also still working on culture and people, which was the area that I was running already. And so I really enjoy thinking about those strategic areas of the business and hopping onto problem solving. And so this job description really resonated with me. And so in the end, I moved into that role, which was great. And so I still managed to do all the really fun stuff that I was really enjoying around culture and offsites and all hands. But I can also now operate at the strategic level with the chief of staff role. So that's how I became the chief of staff. The thing with being chief of staff is no day looks the same. Every day is different, and that's what I actually really enjoy about it. It's really fun. So I always spend quite a portion of the day on the phone to Euan or in a meeting with him to align on priorities, make sure that we know where we're going, any updates, sharing things you've heard across the business. So that alignment with your CEO is really which is a really key success factor for this role. So anyone coming into a role of chief of staff, I'd recommend they spend time on that. I then work and spend a lot of time aligning across the org. So working on strategic planning, helping people with priorities, OKR setting. I run and participate in all the exec meetings, so I have to make sure that cadence is working. So I spend a definite portion of each week thinking about what we should be talking about there that will really move the dial in terms of business value. So that's definitely a big part of the role. At the moment, I'm also currently owning business planning across the org, so I spend a lot of time rolling out the planning process, comms, reviewing data, working on models, spending time with our finance team, and doing things around boards, investors, investor relations, board packs, etc. And then in the mix as well, I'm still actually also running the people team. So I've got quite a busy time of it. But I think as a chief of staff, you basically pick up areas that either need problem solving, there's a gap, there's a hole, trying to pull everyone together in alignment. So every day is a bit different. It just depends what's happening and what you need to hop on first. The big things here, I was making a list actually when I got these questions, because there's quite a few, I think you need to be super organised. So you need to be able to stay on top of lots of different agendas. So having a good system for that and not forgetting things, and having a good process around following up and moving things forward. You need to be happy with change and not worry too much about being able to pivot quickly. You need to just get on it. If something happens, change, move, do whatever you need to do. And you need to be happy with that. If you're someone that likes to just, be a real planner and get things moving out, this might not be a role for you, because stuff always gets derailed and you'll have to juggle and move things around. So that's a big thing. You need to be a great communicator and someone who can listen as well. What I find is a lot of people come to me to talk about different bits of the business. I get a lot of updates that way. You end up being the eyes and ears for the CEO internally. And so you need to be able to build trust, and you need to be able to build strong relationships, and be the person that they come to with issues, challenges, areas where they think we could be doing something a bit better. And so that's a really important part of the role, is the relationships. And then I think the key thing is you need to be able to make stuff happen. So you need to be focused. You need to be a good project manager. They'll throw you the most urgent projects. You've got to hop on it quickly, work out who's the stakeholders, what needs to happen by when, get that done, be clearly communicating the objectives and the goals to those individuals, and just make it happen. So I think there's quite a lot of things there, and it works well with generalist skill set, I would say. And you've got to, and I think most importantly, which I love, is I'm passionate about Multiverse and the business. And I think if you join someone like that, a business that you're passionate about what it's trying to do, and most importantly, you've got a great relationship with the CEO or your principal, however you want to refer to that role, then you'll have a great time as chief of staff. This one was a great question. So I think what I did when I was approaching this is, obviously, as I said earlier, I wrote the job description, but I also spent a lot of time talking to other chiefs of staff and listening to things that are out there, like Chief of Staff Network podcasts. There's a book called The Chief of Staff. I think can't remember the exact title, but it's on Amazon, just Chief of Staff. Read those sorts of things, because obviously the Chief of Staff, I mean, depends how old you are, but you think West Wing. But actually with the tech thing now, it's really popular. So there's lots of articles on Medium, HBR. There's a really good one around the case for the Chief of Staff. Make sure you've read all of those and really understood from that, like what it is the role could be, because the Chief of Staff role can take many different guises. No role's the same. So you want to really build up a feeling for what roles and skill sets you would want to be successful in it, so that when you have those conversations with people who are looking for a chief of staff, you can make sure they're aligned. I would also recommend speaking to CEOs who've had a chief of staff in companies of the similar size you're thinking about. So I had some really insightful conversations with CEOs who had a chief of staff at different stages, similar to where Multiverse is. And they were like, these are the things that went well. This is how I'd set it up differently. And this is what didn't work. And it really was great ammunition for the conversations with your possible potential future boss, because it's like, how are they going to set up this role for success? And how are you going to craft it so that it works well for you? And I think that's really important to do from the offset, because if you don't, the role's not going to be set up for success, because the CEO needs to be your champion. They need to set up with the rest of the exec team how this is going to work and why it's important. Otherwise, when you take on the role, it won't be a fit. So I think it's definitely a two-way street. Bear that in mind. So do your research. And then once you're in role, I would say it can be a little bit lonely, because you're sort of this chief of staff person. You obviously work super closely with the CEO. You build these great relationships, but your role's very different to everything else in the organization. So make sure you've got a network. So I recently joined the Chief of Staff Network. That has been a huge help. They've got other people that are doing similar things to you with the same sort of ambiguity, the same amount of change. And so it's great just to have that sort of sounding board group. So I would definitely build your network.